When we talk about control in the global economy, we usually start by naming countries. The largest economies. The richest nations. The rising powers. But control, at a global scale, does not come simply from how big a country is, or how much it produces. It comes from something quieter and far more stable. Control comes from position. From where decisions are made, where flows pass through, and where the rules of the system are defined. And most of this control does not appear on a political map. The global economy often feels open and decentralized. Goods move across borders. Capital circulates at high speed. Supply chains stretch across continents. From the surface, it looks like a flat world, where participation alone is enough to gain influence. But openness is not the same as equality. Behind these movements is a structure, a geography built around specific points and corridors that determine how value moves, and who ultimately captures it. Start with trade. Despite the impression of global circulation, most international trade does not move freely across all space. It passes through narrow channels, shipping lanes, straits, ports, logistics hubs. A small number of locations handle a disproportionate share of the world's goods. Control over these nodes does not require owning factories or producing commodities. It requires controlling access. If goods must pass through you, you don't need to command production itself to shape the outcome. This same logic applies to finance. Money feels abstract, borderless, and instantaneous, but financial power is deeply geographic. Global capital concentrates in a few cities, within a few time zones, inside a limited set of institutions. From these locations, interest rates ripple outward, risk is priced, and liquidity is allocated. Most countries use the global financial system. Only a few are positioned to influence it. Participation allows survival. Position determines leverage. Then there are standards. The technical rules that define what can be sold, what can be insured, what can legally circulate. Product specifications. Safety regulations. Accounting norms. Legal frameworks. These standards appear neutral, but they quietly structure entire markets. If you define the standard, others must adjust to it, often at significant cost. And adaptation, no matter how efficient, is not the same as control. What makes this system difficult to recognize is that it does not resemble traditional domination. There are no visible commands, no occupations, no single authority issuing orders. Countries sign agreements voluntarily. Firms compete within open markets. Everything appears consensual. But consent inside a pre-structured system does not imply equal influence over its design. This is why control often rests not with those who work hardest, or even those who produce the most, but with those who occupy strategic intersections. Places where trade routes converge. Where capital circulates. Where legal and technical rules are set. In these positions, geography becomes leverage. Not through force, but through indispensability. Now consider supply chains. Many countries are deeply integrated into global production networks. Factories operate. Exports grow. Employment expands. From the outside, this looks like progress. But the most valuable segments of these chains are rarely located where production happens. Design, financing, branding, and platform control tend to cluster elsewhere. Integration creates activity. Position determines returns. This difference becomes most visible during crises. When disruptions occur, some actors are able to stabilize the system, provide liquidity, and absorb shocks. Others are forced to adjust, cut back, or wait for conditions to normalize. Decisions made at a few key nodes can reshape trade volumes, exchange rates, and development paths far beyond their borders. Control often reveals itself not when everything works smoothly, but when something breaks. Here lies the paradox. The global economy feels decentralized and competitive, yet control within it is highly concentrated. Not everywhere, but in very specific places. And once these positions are established, they tend to reproduce their advantage over time. Because control attracts flows, and flows reinforce control. So when we ask who really controls the global economy, the answer is not a single nation, and not a simple hierarchy of wealth. It is a network of positions. Ports that cannot be bypassed. Financial centers that cannot be ignored. Institutions whose rules become defaults. Together, they form an invisible map of power, one that operates behind national borders and above local effort. Most countries operate within this map. A few help draw it. And the difference between the two is not ambition, intelligence, or discipline. It is position. The global economy is often described as a competition between nations. In reality, it is a system organized around the control of space. Who controls movement? Who controls access? Who controls the rules? And who must navigate them without ever shaping them? Power in the modern world does not always announce itself. Sometimes, it simply decides how the world flows. This is behind the map.